Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Before I begin today, a big thank you to Gavin for the virtual gift voucher. Big thank you my friend for the support, it is truly appreciated, thank you. But on to today. So today we begin our Primarch Face Off tournament, as brother takes on brother. The contest to decide which Primarch would come out on top and be declared the greatest one-on-one fighter. General spoiler warning to begin, as we will be referencing lore throughout the Warhammer 40k and Horus Heresy universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so let's begin by just going over the rules. Rule number 1. All Primarchs are as the Emperor intended them to be during the Great Crusade. So we are not including any Chaos enhanced powers. And number 2. All contests will be decided by you guys voting. However, in the event of a draw, I will cast the deciding vote. And lastly, rule number 3. Nobody talks about Primarch Fight Club. Okay, maybe not that one. Just the 2 rules it is. Now, if you missed the drawing of the matchups last week, feel free to go back and check them out quickly before returning. But the lineups for round 1 are as follows. LORGAR vs CURZE. Gilliman vs CORAX. ANGRON takes on Magnus the Red. Perturabo vs Jagatai Khan. Leman Russ vs Rogel Dawn. Oh man. Vulcan takes on Fulgrim. Horus Lupercal takes on Lion L. Johnson. And Ferrus Manus takes on Sanguinius, with Alfarius and Mortarion receiving a bye into the second round, and this is just so the tournament format works out. So with that said, let's just crack on with match number 1. LORGAR vs CURZE. The Urizen taking on the Night Haunter. Now this is a matchup I truly hadn't even contemplated. LORGAR, out of all the Primarchs, has possibly the strongest evolution of character, from the beginning of the Crusade to the days of the Heresy. For all the Primarchs' rivalries, there was always an unspoken warrior's respect, except for LORGAR. He was genuinely looked down upon by many, if not all, of his brothers. Angron despised him, and Russ felt he could beat LORGAR just by spitting on him. The simple fact is, LORGAR was much more a priest than he was a warrior. Until Monarchia. With the raising of the Perfect City, a fire was kindled inside the Urizen, and a resolve ignited, and the priest became a warrior. Embracing the psychic power within, he truly became a force to be reckoned with. But the Night Haunter, CURZE, is a killer. He doesn't need a Monarchia. He was moulded in the darkness of Nostramo, surrounded by criminals and murderers, and there's not one of his brothers who doesn't respect his prowess in battle, regardless of their opinion of the man. In battle, LORGAR predominantly wields Illuminarum, a power maul crafted by his brother Ferrus Manus, and CURZE his twin lightning claws Mercy and Forgiveness. And with all due respect to LORGAR's psychic ability, in my personal opinion, I just don't think it's enough to save him in this encounter. CURZE's martial skill is simply a cut above. He's fighting on a level LORGAR can only dream of. And that's not even touching on CURZE's mental state, the madness that is slowly overtaking his mind, giving him the heedless power of the insane. let alone his gift of flashes of the future. LORGAR is just out of his depth in my mind. Conrad CURZE is taking the win easily. But of course this is just my opinion. The vote is down to you. Do you agree with me that Conrad is just too much for LORGAR to take on? Or do you have a different opinion? Am I underestimating LORGAR? He is still a Primarch after all. I'll be interested to see how you guys vote on this one. Next up we have Gilman versus Korax. The Lord of Ultramar takes on the Raven Lord. Now Gilliman is criminally underrated as a fighter, and I think this is in large part to his reputation as an administrator. And yeah, of course, that's his specialism, his role. But he's not a worshipping LORGAR. Gilliman is a warrior king. He was raised upon Macragge to lead on the battlefield. And we've even seen him hold his own against LORGAR and ANGRON at the same time. Albeit, yes, briefly. That's still an impressive feat. And the rumours abound of him slaying Alfarius, who we know of course is most likely Omegon. So briefly holding his own against 2 Primarchs, and slaying another in close combat, I'd say sleep on Gilliman at your own peril. But then we have Korax's own Primarch novel, and we actually see Gilliman going one-on-one with Korax himself. Now yes, this is a training exercise, but we see Gilliman getting the win, though admittedly Korax is unarmoured, and it is stated that Korax did win their first 3 encounters. But for Korax himself, Korax is the master of shadow, so much so even CURZE is vehemently jealous of his brother. For while the Night Haunter worships the night, Korax owns it. Stealth and ambush tactics are his nature, but only a fool would think that's all he is capable of. On the battlefield, Korax is an absolute wrecking ball. At the Istvan massacre, for example, Korax demolishes LORGAR with absolute ease, and he's only stopped from ending LORGAR permanently with the arrival of a second Primarch. Usually armed with lightning claws and a whip, Korax is all about offense in a fight, and tearing his enemy apart as swiftly as possible. And while some of the earlier writing didn't quite give him the credit he's due, it has been slowly corrected over the years, and he now has the respect his skills deserve. So if this contest was best of 3, I could see Gilliman coming out the victor, because learning and adapting is his forte, more so than any of his brothers. But it's not. This is one fight for your life, and for me, I just think Korax is bringing too much to the table. His fury, speed, skill would all be too much for Gilliman to handle, and while it would most definitely be a hard-fought fight, in my mind it would be Korax coming out the victor. But do you guys agree or not? Time will tell. Oh man, now this is the main event of day 1. Angron versus Magnus the Red. The Berserker versus the Sorcerer. Man, this is interesting to think about. Angron raised in the pits of Nuceria, embedded with the Butcher's nails, is nothing short of a monster in combat. He has known nothing but pain, fighting, loss, suffering, his entire life. And his punishment for still retaining a sense of humanity was to have his brain torn apart by the Butcher's nails. To say Angron is a broken Primarch is putting it mildly. But this has left him, no pun intended, a demon on the battlefield. He will attack with every fibre of his body. He will keep coming again and again until he has won or he is dead. Whether wielding his two-handed axe Widowmaker or the twins of Gorechild and Gorefather, I don't think there is any debate. Magnus is sorely outmatched in martial skill. But Magnus doesn't rely on his skills with a blade. He was made to be the sorcerer, the most powerful psychic mind of all the Primarchs, by far, second only to the Emperor himself in power. He wields spells and psychic weapons as easily as his brothers do blades, and he's intelligent enough to know taking Angron on at his own game would be suicide. Magnus would wield every power at his disposal to keep Angron at arm's length. And I've got to tell you guys, I'm not sure what way to lean on this one. And that may sound like a surprise to some, with Angron being such a force of nature. But that's just it. It's not nature. His mind is forced into rage, and that can make him rash and foolhardy, blind to the wider picture. And I think Magnus could be smart enough to take advantage of that. And yes, I hear you cry, but he lost to Russ. But in my opinion, you shouldn't overthink that. Each Primarch has some form of psychic ability, in one form or another. And with this, Russ has a natural ward against the powers of the warp. His very aura is anathema to those kind of powers, as described by Ahriman. It's one of the reasons why Russ and his wolves are the Emperor's executioners. Angron doesn't have that, because we have seen his psychic ability. It was a form of empathy, an ability to draw out and take others' pain. I don't see how that's going to help him in a duel against Magnus. So the question is, could Magnus hold off Angron enough to use his powers to full effect and take advantage? Or would Angron be just too much? I just don't know. It would definitely be something I would have loved to see. I don't know which way to lean here, so I'm extremely excited to see the way you guys vote. Are you going to be buying into Magnus's intelligence? Or is the rage of Angron just too much? Oh, I can't wait to see how you guys vote on this one. But that's it, that's our first 3 matchups. I will be putting a link to the voting polls in the description, so make sure to cast your vote ASAP. And for those of you who have got Wolf Lord Rho on Instagram, I may put a story poll up there too. Tomorrow we continue on with our first round matchups, with Perturabo versus Jagatai, Leman Russ versus Dawn, oh boy, and Vulcan versus Fulgrim. Man, am I looking forward to tomorrow. Russ versus Dawn. Oh man, that may just be the whole matchup of the entire tournament, let alone round 1. But again, make sure you get your votes in, guys. That's it for today. Huge thank you to all my subscribers. Your support really means a lot to me, it truly does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again tomorrow.